goal of the clearinghouse and some more general things, but mostly about permits. And for the BCH questions, there was also a bit of variety, but a lot of them were how to publish information, all the some of the basic information on the BCH. I don't know if you want to say anything about that now, but I guess we'll get to that later, right, Zachar? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you mentioned, a good portion of the questions that refer to the BCH were asking about some general details on the publishing process. So we can go through it later, but that's what we'll focus on today.
So I'm just going to start. I just wanted to give that little introduction, and I'm just going to start by showing you how to get to the dashboard in the submission section. So that's the first step to submit information and get it published on the clearinghouse. So you know what, I'm going to show you also how similar these two clearinghouses are. You can see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yeah, okay, good. So the ABS clearinghouse, absch.cbd.int, and the BCH clearinghouse, bch.cbd.int. As you can see, they're very similar in the way they look and their layout. So today we're talking about the submit section, which is right here. So this is where you go to register information in the clearinghouses. You first need to log in. So when you click on the submit section, you have to enter your email and password. If you don't have an account, you can create an account. If you forgot your password, that happens a lot, you can reset it there. So I'll sign in, and it immediately takes you to this page. So this is the dashboard. It's going to be the same on the BCH when you log in and submit, but I'll just show you the ABS clearinghouse for now. I think when we talk about functionality during this webinar, we'll alternate between the ABS clearinghouse and the BCH to show that the functionality is generally the same. I mean, some of the specific details about the record types and different things are different, but in terms of how to use the site, it's basically the same. So this is the dashboard, and the point of this page is to give you an overview of what it looks like, what your records look like in the clearinghouse, whether you have some published records or drafts, or you have some requests to get published, or you have sent requests to the publishing authority. There's basically two sections to this page, and a third section which is not showing because when you do have a publishing request, you'd be able to see it on this page. So this kind of gives you an overview of basically your clearinghouse work. So the first section shows you a little bit about who you are and your roles. So I'm a national authorized user, and I'm also an administrator. So you can see the rest of my roles. I have a whole number of roles, but you can update your profile. So I think that's important. So from time to time, click on this link here. It will take you to our CBD accounts website, which you can update your personal information, and it's worthwhile to keep that up to date. So check that now and then. That's how you update your password. Most people who are part of their government will have a country affiliation. So I don't have one right now, but if you are affiliated with the country and you have one of the roles that allow you to access the national records on the clearinghouse, or to submit either a national authorized user or a publishing authority in the case of the ABS clearinghouse. In the case of the BCH clearinghouse, it's a BCH focal point or a national authorized user. You'll be able to see the national records. So these are all the national records that are more or less the obligatory information that's required by the protocol that countries have to provide as part of their responsibility to be a party. So below here is the reference record. So reference records follow a slightly different publishing workflow than the national records. The reference records, anybody who has an account can see these reference records and submit them. So they can fill out a form, for example, for a virtual library resource, and that will get when they request publication of that record, it will get published by the Secretariat. So that's sort of the difference between these two sections. And then we have a third sort of floating section down here called contact records. So contracts have been sort of separated out because they apply to both types of records, both the national records as well as the reference records. So one of the things that we've tried to add on this page is these tours. So if you see a tour, a little question mark, it says take tour, you can click on that and it will take you through kind of just what I did and show you some of the features of the page. So you can always click on those if you are unsure about how to use a page. So it goes through all the important features of the page. One of the things that I think we'll talk about a little bit as well today is the help, the contextual help that we've added. So when you click on this little question mark at the top, you'll get FAQs and information, helpful information about the specific page that you're on. So all this help here is about, for example, what is the dashboard? How do you submit information? So this is a lot of the questions that people have asked during the registration process. So I would encourage you, if you have questions, to try and check this knowledge base first for answers. Yeah, one last thing is this is the, so you see we have offline formats here. So you can also download each of the formats for these record types by clicking on the language links. So I think I'm gonna pass the floor. That's just a very brief overview of this first initial dashboard page. Maybe we can just talk about these buttons as well. So by each record type, there is a drop down, so you can see the latest 10 published records or submitted records. You can add a new record, or you can go to the list of all records. So that's basically how you access the submission forms. We're going to go through some of these other pages along the top here, not the admin page. That's just because I'm an administrator, but you won't see that. But requests, notifications, user management, email alerts. And yeah, I think that's just a quick overview. And I'll pass the floor to Zachar to continue.
Great, thanks, Matt. So now what I'll do is, with this bit of an introduction on the submit page, we'll go through and I'll go through the process of submitting a record. So the first thing I'm going to point out is that anytime you want to practice on the BCH, particularly for submitting and publishing information, it's best to do it on the training site. So you can tell that I'm on the training site right now because the header has changed color and it quite clearly indicates that we're in training. The good thing about the training site is that you can publish and edit information without affecting any of the core information on the clearinghouse itself. So Matt really well highlighted all the details that we see here on the dashboard. And in this current situation here, I'm signed in as a national authorized user for Pakistan. So we see here my country affiliation is Pakistan here. It indicates that I'm the national authorized user. And as Matt had highlighted, national authorized users have the ability to submit both reference records and also national records. And when they submit a national record, it essentially initiates a workflow process where that submitted record goes to the national focal point, who can later review, verify, and publish that information. So we see here, Matt had alluded to a pending requests drop-down option, and we see in this account, which is the practice account for Pakistan, you can open this up, and there are actually quite a lot of requests that are pending for the national focal point to go in and review and publish. Okay, so what we'll do is we will go through and publish a competent national authority record. And one thing I'll clarify, I mentioned that as a national authorized user, you submit, and then the BCH National Focal Point reviews, verifies, publishes. In the case of the ABS Clearinghouse, it's the publishing authority who will be the individual that will review and publish the information. All right, so Matt had highlighted that to create a new record, you can click this little plus button here that's you see when we hover over it, it says Add New Record. But another way we can do it is we can click on the common format of interest, which is competent national authority. And when you do so, you get to a landing page that shows all of the records in the clearinghouse for that common format. So in this case, we're seeing that on the training site for competent national authorities on the BCH, there are 4 published records. If there are any drafts here, we'll see them as well, and any requests we'll see as well. So another place we can go to add a new record, we see at the top right, there's a Add New button. So we'll go ahead and click on that. All right, so the submission process for a record has 4 simple steps. The first step you see here is introduction. And this really is a space that's going to provide some contextual details on the specific common format in question. We see some information related to what it is, and also some specifics about just its application in the specific protocol. So we see that Article 19 in the Cartagena Protocol specifies some details on the competent national authority, and we can click on it to view more details there. The second step we see here is the submission form. So this is the key space where you're going to be inputting all necessary fields that are associated with our selected format. So in this case, the competent national authority. And we'll go through and make a record now together. So we see that each field that has a little red asterisk, those are mandatory fields that you have to fill out in order to submit the record. So the first one here is a language selector. So another thing we saw a bit in the registration form and have received questions in the past is about how to submit information in other languages. We see that English is pre-selected because I'm navigating the English version of the site. But if you click here, you can select 1 or more of the 6 UN languages. And if you wish, you can also select other languages that you may want to submit in addition to some of the UN languages. So if I wish to submit this record in English and Burmese, every time we see a text field, we see there's an English one as well as a Burmese option just below. So I'll deselect that and we'll just submit this record in English. So I'm signed in as a BCH National Authorized User for Pakistan. So the country field is already highlighted because that's the government that's associated with this account. And let's go ahead and put in a name for this authority. So we'll call it the Biosafety Authority. And in just an effort to keep things quick, I'll leave these fields that aren't mandatory empty for now. But in a normal circumstance, you'd want to give as much information as possible. So let's say this is in Islamabad, and the country of contact will be Pakistan as well. And the phone number, we can put in anything there. We can put in the email for the competent national authority. And then we can add a website if we wish. Another thing you can do here is add additional contact information. We can link to a contact record in the database. So Matt had highlighted that at the bottom of the submit dashboard, we have specific contact records, and we can actually associate one or more of those contact records with this specific competent national authority. So let's say that we go through and we want to indicate that this individual, Muhammad Chok, is a contact for this authority. We can click the checkbox and select the individual, and we see all of the information for that person is indicated here. And when the record is published, that contact record will be linked to it. Now, let's say we want to add a contact. Let's say in this case, I want to add myself. And I run a search and see that I'm actually not in the database of contacts, we can click this Create Contact button, and this opens a new window pane within our submit page, which is actually opening a new record submission process within. So this is called inline record creation. And this is quite a simple one because we just want to add a new contact for myself. So I'll go to the form here and quite quickly indicate details for myself and my contact. So let's put in the country and then my email. And then we can actually go ahead and publish this record. So now within the submission process for this competent national authority, we've actually also created a contact record that's associated with it. So now moving on, we see a few more details that we need to indicate for a competent national authority regarding their responsibilities. And so for the administrative functions, we can just say that for this authority, they are responsible for all functions pursuant to the Cartagena Protocol. And for the type of organisms under its responsibility, let's say that it is just plants. We can provide additional information through this detailed description field here. And then there's also, if you want to provide more information, there's an additional information text field here as well. We can also upload files and add links if we wish to be associated with the record, so other users that view the published information can access more details. But we don't have to if we don't need it for our purposes. Now let's say in this case we're pretty close to being done, but let's pretend that I feel as though I have done majority of what I need, but I want to come back to this record at a later time. So what you could do is you can click the Save Draft button that you see at the top right. And what that's going to do is it's going to save all of the work that I've done up to now in my account so that on a later date or time, I can come back and continue where I left off. Also, once you've saved your draft, you can now export this draft as a PDF, or you can share the draft with other colleagues. So if you click the share button, you have a couple different options. The first of which, once I select all bridges, let's see, perfect. The first of which is to get a link and share by a link. So once you share by link, you can provide that to anyone, and anyone with that link can view the draft. Now, let's say I'm submitting information that I don't want to share with just anyone. I want it to be very specific to other colleagues and clearinghouse users. I can send by email. So I can go ahead and say, indicate specific emails. And now Matt would have to sign into the clearinghouse to be able to view this draft. All right, so that's how the save draft and the share draft function work on the clearinghouse. It's quite intuitive and available just at the top right of the submission panel. Now, in this case, we feel pretty good about this record, but when we go to the review pane, here it's going to highlight two things. One, the system will let you know if you've submitted everything that you need to be able to publish the record. So if I have any mandatory fields that are missing, it'll let me know, and it'll tell me specifically what I need to input. But in this case, it's telling me that the document is valid and everything is good to go. I can also review all of the information that I've provided here, and then decide if I need to go back and make any changes. Now, when I'm ready to submit to the national focal point in this case, and again, for the ABS Clearinghouse, it'd be submitting to the publishing authority, I'd go to this publishing pane here, where again, I can see all the information. And when I'm ready, I can click Request Publication. So this will now initiate that workflow process. I can indicate a little text if I want to provide some information to the national focal point here. I might say, please publish. But of course, in a real scenario, I might provide a little bit more details for the national focal point to see. But this is just an internal text that isn't going to be part of the record, but something just for them to know. So now I've clicked the send request button, and now the workflow has started for this submission process. And what is going to happen is the BCH National Focal Point will receive an email that's going to notify them that there is a new submitted record for a competent national authority that has that requires their attention. So now we saw this landing page for competent national authorities here. In the past, it had 4 published records, and now we see the new draft that we just created, the Biosafety Authority for Pakistan, and we see that it's pending approval. So back at the dashboard, you remember we had this pending request dropdown, and these are all of the items that our BCH National Focal Point need to review, and we see the Biosafety Authority is at the top. So now for that BCH National Focal Point, they'll receive an email alerting them to this record that requires their attention. And when they log into their dashboard, they'll also see these 27 requests that have come in. So with that, now I'll pass the floor to my colleague, Anastasia Believa, and she will walk through the first thing, these requests, and another place that you can see them, some notifications, user management, and email alerts. So Anastasia, you can take over.
Yes, thank you very much, Zakir. Just want to check if, can you tell me if you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, so I'm also using, so as Zakir mentioned, I will briefly describe to you the other 4 functions or 4 tabs that you see when on the submit page: request, notification, user management, and email alerts. I'm also using the training site, and this is my dashboard. And just to let you know that I'm signed in as the BCH National Focal Point for Pakistan. The functions that I'm going to explain are similar. They on the EBS and BCH Clearing-House, and I will switch between those two to show you how they work on both sides. So what are requests? Requests, when you click on this tab, it shows you a page that basically lists all the records that are related to the workflow and that are associated with your account. So I'm signed in as a focal point for Pakistan, national focal point. So in here, I have a summary of all the requests that I've created or have come my way. As Zakir, he just as a national authorized user for Pakistan, for example, he just created this Biosafety Authority, competent national authority record. I'm, as a BCH focal point, have received this request by email, but I also see it. Just going to show you. See, I see it on my dashboard. It's right here. It's pending your approval. But I will also see it in this requests page. And so on this, I also see some other. I have a lot of national authorized users. They've been very busy, so I see all other pending requests, my approval. I can use these filters to see past requests, for example, that happened in the past, or I can see all. I can filter by record types. Another thing that I can do is I can just click on the record here. For example, this is the publishing authority that Zakir just created, and I can approve, edit, or reject the request right from here. So I can do it from here. Another thing I can see, this is, for example, a request that I created, and it's a reference, the BCH News, it's a reference record that will need to be approved by a secretariat. I can also click on it, and important thing to note here that once you submit a record for approval, if you don't have the right to publish it, that what you can do is you can cancel request. You cannot edit anymore, but you can cancel the request. So if, let's say, I change my mind, I don't want to publish this record anymore, I can click on cancel and it will be canceled. Now let's go to notifications. Notifications, when you click on it, it's a page that basically gives you a summary of all the notifications that you receive by email, but they're all summarized here. Again, you have some filters here to help you filter for the information you want. It's sort of like your personal inbox. These are the same notification that you could also see by clicking on the bell button over here. And the number in the red, 46, tells me I have 46 messages messages that I haven't read. So I can open them from here. All these notifications are clickable. You can access them from here or from here. So let me just go back here. Now let's go to the user management. User management is a very important page. In BCH, user management is intended for the use by the BCH national focal points only. So if you're a BCH national focal point, you will be able to access and see this page. If you're not, you will have no access to it. In ABS Clearinghouse, user management is intended for the use of two types of users, ABS National Focal Point and ABS Publishing Authority. I'm going to come back to the ABS later on. I'm going to go back to the BCH. Both sections function the same way in BCH and ABS, and I will demonstrate how we can use it. So the first thing, you might, when you log in, you might see a lot of records here. A lot of records that you might say, oh, who are these people? I haven't nominated them. Where do they come from? Well, don't be alarmed, because all the records that you see, this user management is shared by different clearinghouses of the convention. So you will see all people that are associated with your government and have accounts with the CBD. So the roles that you need to look at is the ones that are like in dark gray. So here, these are the roles that are associated with BCH and ABS. They are associated with ABS Clearinghouse. So don't worry about all the other roles. You can't do anything about them, but it's the ones that are in dark gray that are under your control. So in BCH, you use this page to nominate national authorized users. You can nominate as many national users as you want. How do we do that? Well, it's very simple. You click this button, Add Authorized User, and then you input the email of the person. So I'm going to put Karim. And as you see, the system found Karim. It means that Karim Bahlawan, if he already has an account with the convention site. So the system found him. So I see that's who he is. And then, okay, so all I need to do is click Next. And in here, the system allows me in BCH to specify what kind of national authorized user I want him to be. Do I want him to be able to create all national records, or maybe just laws, or maybe just decisions, or maybe just national reports? Well, I'm going to click on this one. I want him to be able to publish all records, not publish, I'm sorry, create and submit for publication. As a national authorized user, he cannot publish records in the clearinghouses. It's only the BCH national focal point, or in ABS Clearinghouse, it is the ABS Publishing Authority who have the right to publish records. Then I click Next, and then I click Proceed. And Karim is added right here, and he will receive an email with from Secretariat with notifying him that he has been nominated as a national authorized user, and he will have a link where he can go update his profile and create password. Now, what happens if I'm adding a user that does not have an account with the clearinghouse? You see, I get a message that this particular person, Jane Smith, does not exist. It doesn't have a user account. Well, you can just continue. Just click Next. And what you do is you basically will create the account for this person. So I will create her. I click Next. You get the same page. I will assign her a role. I click Next. I click Proceed. And the person will be added and will receive an email, again, like Karim will receive an email with her account information and a link where this person can enter, can change the password or on profile. So I guess this is taking a bit of time. I don't know why. You know what? Because this is probably a person does. Okay, I'm gonna cancel. Probably didn't work because Jane Smith is a fake name, so probably doesn't even have a I'm just using it for this training purposes. But anyway, that's how you create a user who doesn't have an account. This button allows you to update the roles. This button here allows you to delete the national authorized user. Now, one point, I'm going to go back to the ABS Clearinghouse. Important thing to point out here that it functions the same way. The difference is that two users can use user management, ABS national focal points and published authorized users. And in here, they can nominate two types of users, national authorized user for ABS Clearinghouse and publishing authority. The ABS focal point can nominate both a publishing authority and national authorized user. If you are ABS publishing authority, you will only be able to nominate national authorized users. You can nominate as many national authorized users as you can, but with respect to publishing authority, only one publishing authority is allowed per country. Okay, let's go to email alerts. This tab, and I'm going to stay on the ABS Clearinghouse site, this tab allows you to create custom queries and also subscribe to receive email notifications when records that correspond to these queries are published or updated in the clearinghouse. So you can create these custom queries, save them, and subscribe to receive email alerts. I already have a query here in this section created, so it's an ABS procedures. Basically, I'm going to receive email alerts whenever there's records that are published or updated on ABS procedures, and they correspond to these keywords here. But I want to create another alert. You can create as many alerts as you want. So how do we do that? Click Add New. Now, in this, type the name of your alert. So I want to basically be notified whenever CNA, competent national authorities, are published by the African region. So, so I put the name. Here is the interface from the search page. So in here, I will select my record type. So I want to be a competent national authority. I go to region, and I want to select the Africa region over here. Close this, so you see the filters have been selected. Then I'm going to click this button, send me an email when records relevant to the search are added or updated. Yes, and I click save, and that's it. So see, my alert has been added here, right here. It's the first one here. So I have two alerts now. What are these buttons here? The search button, when you click on it, it basically takes you automatically to the search page. And all the filters that are saved are already selected, and automatically you see all the records associated with that custom query. Now, it's important to note here that my saved searches here on the search page are the same as email alerts. And whatever you created an email alerts page, it's shown here. So these are similar functions. Okay, so let's go back to email alerts. Edit and delete are obvious buttons. Email me, basically, if let's say I don't want to receive these alerts, these type of alerts, I can just deselect email me, and in my email notification, these alerts will be removed. Other important things to note here, frequency. You have this email alert frequency. Basically, you can set up to receive your alerts on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, or never. Never means that the email notifications will be just paused. All your alerts are still preserved and saved, but just not going to receive any notifications for whatever time you wish. By default, notifications are sent weekly, but you can change that in this email alerts frequency section. And then there's this section called Overview Alerts. So when you click here, email me, basically what it means that in the email alert notification that you will receive, you will have a section that will summarize all the updated and published records corresponding to your alerts. My alerts will give you detailed breakdown of those records, but this section will just give you a short summary. And if you don't want to include that section in your notification, your email, you just deselect it. That's it. So that's it. I will pass the floor now to Karim.
Yes, thank you, Anastasia. Allow me to share my screen. Can you all see it?
Yeah, we can see it, Kareem.
Okay. So just want to reassure you all that the processes that Matt showed you earlier concerning finding help, contextual help, and the tours are exactly the same on the BCH. So if we go into submit here and find the take dashboard tour, it's also the same type of tour. It also guides you through the dashboard. And then if you also want to submit a record and get guidance throughout, there's also the tour here with the question mark located in the same place. And contextual help is also in the same place on the BCH. So this will give you questions that are related to what you're trying to do on that page. You can also always go into about to find more frequently asked questions if you want to familiarize yourself with the BCH. And you can always reach out to us using this button down here with the question mark. We'll be happy to answer your questions over here. And there's also one last option. You can reach out to us directly on bch@cbd.int. And for ABS-CH questions, you can use absch@cbd.int. I will pass the floor back to Matt now. Thank you.
Thanks, Kareem. So yeah, that kind of help is the exact same on both clearinghouses, and you can see a lot of the functionality is similar, and all those things that Zachar, Anastasia, and Kareem mentioned are working the same on both clearinghouses. One of the things I want to also mention is that if you're having specific problems on using the clearinghouse, please reach out to us, send us an email, and we can do like a one-on-one training with you and help you publish your information. So really, there's not any excuse not to be able to get information submitted and published on the clearinghouse. And even if you have a poor internet connection, we can help you fill out the offline comment format. You can email that to us or send that to us, and we can publish it for you. So there's really no excuse to not being able to submit information and get it published. So I just want to go back a little bit. Can you see? Yeah, I guess you can see my screen, to some of the questions that came up during this webinar. Yeah, the registration. And I want to show you, so a lot of the questions that came up were about IRCCs, how to generate an IRCC, publishing information procedures on IRCCs, so internationally recognized certificates of compliance. So I don't want to really talk too much about that, but I'll show you the ABS Clearinghouse again. And if you go to the help, you can click on this knowledge base, or you can go from about. And if I just type in, for example, IRCC into the search, you're going to get a lot of information about IRCCs. And for example, how to publish information on an ABS permit and generate an internationally recognized certificate of compliance. So check this information first before. There's a lot of information that answers exactly the questions that people have been asking. So it presents some of the steps. It goes through how to make this information available on the clearinghouse. What we're trying to do is we've sort of improved how we organize our FAQs and help articles. And we've set up this process so this information can be easily translated. So a lot of this information is starting to be translated in all the UN languages, so it should be available soon. So for example, we have tags at the bottom of these screens, or at the bottom of each article, that links to more information about permits or related information about monitoring. So another question was about how once IRCC is published, what happens with it and who gets sent to. So this flow of information to the ABS Clearinghouse to support monitoring shows you step by step when a certificate is published, a copy gets sent to the user, a copy gets sent to the CNA who issued that permit, and a copy gets sent to the ABS National Focal Point in that country. So you can find out all the answers to your questions in this knowledge base. So I think it can be really helpful. So what we're trying to do is the questions that are not answered by the knowledge base, we'll try to add that to the knowledge base and improve it as we go. Another question was the possibility to add bulk uploads of IRCCs. So that's a good question that we've have been trying to address a couple different ways. So we've set up a system now to accept an Excel spreadsheet of IRCCs that can be quickly uploaded into the system, and then you don't have to go and add each one separately in a form. So that's one way. We also have an API that you can use to set up interoperability. If you have some sort of database or system that manages your permits already, you can automatically publish a version on the clearinghouse as an IRCC. And that would require a little bit more work on your side to set up this interoperability, but it can be done and we can help you with that. So if the person who asked about bulk uploads of IRCCs or anybody who's interested, please contact us about that because it's sort of a specific thing that we'll set up with you. Another question that came up that I wasn't really addressed was the possibility to include a summary. For example, I'm assuming here this is a possibility to include a summary on the country profile page to give additional information about, I guess, the status of implementation of the protocol in that country. And this is something that we've talked about a little bit with our IAC, our Informal Advisory Committee, and it's something that we could do, and we did actually trial it before, but one of the problems that came up when we did this was that occasionally people wanted to submit information that conflicted with some of the information in the national records, and we felt that made it more confusing, so we didn't enable this feature. So it's another thing, though, we're going to discuss at the next IAC meeting. So it will, we may find a way to do that, but right now it's not available. Another question that I wanted to address was, can a national competent authority also be a national authorized user at the same time? So yes, they can, and a national authorized user can be anybody who works with the clearinghouse to submit information. So it can be a national competent authority, it could be a checkpoint, it could be any person or in your country that works to submit information. So a national competent authority has a different responsibility in terms of implementation of the protocol. They're responsible for issuing permits, ABS permits, when they to users. So that's a different type of entity. A national authorized user is someone who's allowed to submit records on the national records on the clearinghouse and get them published by the publishing authority. So that's just the difference. Another question that came up, are there differences in access for parties versus non-parties? And I'm pretty sure this is a question that has already been answered on the knowledge base. So I'll just put in non-parties. So yeah, here's an example of an answer. Can countries that are not yet a party to the protocol publish national information on the clearinghouse? So this explains, yes, non-parties can publish information basically under the same circumstances as parties. So you can find a lot of the answers to the questions that you're asking on this knowledge base. So if you see a problem with any of these knowledge-based questions, or you think you can you'd want more information, please write to us. If you notice a problem with any of the functionality that we've showed you today, please also contribute helping to improve the site by letting us know about those problems. Another question that came up is how to integrate data from national websites into the clearinghouse. So you can also learn more about interoperability. We have a section on the first page of the knowledge base, sort of takes you through some of the key things, and one of them is about well, you can, yeah, we have a section somewhere on interoperability. One of the things that we're trying to promote this year is more work on interoperability and the API. So you can find out more information on this by writing to us or searching on the knowledge base, and we can help you set up this kind of interaction. Another thing I'll just very quickly show you that may help with this is that in the search, you can view the records that you've published. I think it's important also to remember, once you've published information, it's good to come back, try to find it in the search, and make sure it's accurate. And you can review your national records through the country profile page regularly to make sure none of the information is out of date or needs to be updated. So I think that's an important thing to remember. So for example, if you're looking at a record here or a search, you can always share this search, and you can embed it. So you could take this entire search that on this page and embed it into your website. So that's one way to share information from the clearinghouse directly into a national website. So if you have more specific questions about that, please contact us. And one last question I'll show you here is, what should I do? I'm a new focal point, and what should I do? So one of the things, where did my screen go? Oh, there it is. So one of the things you can do is, again, go to the About page. This About page highlights a lot of the key information that you need to know about the clearinghouse, about the clearinghouse, what it is, what are its goals. It talks about a lot of the information you need to know. There's one section on getting started. So why is it important to publish information? It tells you about, for example, getting started using the ABS Clearinghouse for governments. So you can click on there. It tells you what you need to do to set up your publishing authority, how to sign in, and how to get started publishing information. So I encourage you to use this knowledge base and let us know how it goes. But for these questions that we've received, I'll send an email with a link to some of the information in the knowledge base, as well as ask you if you need any more help. And if you do, don't hesitate to ask me, and we'll set up a one-on-one session. So I'll just maybe pass the floor over to Zachar to answer any specific BCH questions that came up.
Thanks, Matt. Let me just share my screen. So I'm also conscious of the time, so I'll keep it quite brief. But I'll first highlight that a lot of the BCH questions that came in were about the process to publish information. And a lot of that I think we went through. There were some questions that came in regarding some of the more scientific and technical content on the BCH. And what we'd like to do is host a specific webinar in the future where we go through maybe the publishing process for some of our scientific information and answer some of these specific details. There were a few other things. We see one of our colleagues pointed out the new versioning feature we have on the clearinghouse. So I wanted to just take a moment to show a little bit of what that's like. So they said that there's a new feature about visibility of versions of a record, and the evolution of a record is now trackable. So it helps users to understand that records can and should be edited if new and reliable information is available. So I'll pull up just an example here. Oh, one moment. I think, perfect. So I wanted to show one thing, and the first thing I'll point out is that for every every time you see a ID in the clearinghouse, the UID that we have in the clearinghouse really gives a lot of information. So we see for this specific record, the first 3 letters indicate that's part of the BCH. For the ABS clearinghouse, it will say ABSCH. And then here we see that this is part of our LMO records. And then the next thing indicates the author. So here we see it's the Secretariat, and then we have the record ID. And then the very last thing we see is the version number. And that's really what is being referred to by that comment. And I wanted to go ahead and show you an example of a record that has many versions in the database. So when we click on this specific record for canola, we can see the detailed information of the record, but at the top we have this version history. So we see that this record was actually initially published back in 2006 here, and we see through the years it's been updated. And one great feature we have is the ability to compare the most recent version of a record with previous versions. So at the last webinar, our colleague Blaise Fonseca demonstrated this feature. But if you go ahead and click on compare here, you can see the difference between, let's say, the version that was published just at the end of January by our science colleague Austin McLaughlin to the version, let's say, from 2013 by Dina Abdul Hakim. So let's go ahead and select that. And then we can see all of the changes that have been made between the newest version and the oldest one. And so within that, I think what being alluded to by that comment was that, we went through the process for publishing new records, but anytime you see a record in the database that, either it seems a little outdated or is missing something, you can actually just go ahead and edit that information. And then your new version will be published with the new revision number. So the previous version is still in the database, but you'll be updating and editing that information, and we'll be able to see that lineage and history in the submit dashboard for the specific record. One other thing I wanted to point out is, Anastasia really well went through the details for how to use user management and assign a national authorized user. And a key thing that I wanted to highlight is that, the reason why you'd want to do that. A lot of national focal points and publishing authorities, many of them are in a position where there's a lot of responsibilities that they have on the clearinghouse, and they're challenged with time. And so designating a national authorized user can really help you with the process of fulfilling the necessary obligations under the respective protocol, because you can have an individual in your organization that you want to kind of take the lead on creating some of these necessary records, and then you can just review and publish it if you're a national BCH national focal point or a publishing authority. So those are some of the key things that came up, apart from some of the general ones that we discussed. We see questions about how to add data, how to share information. For sharing, we saw how to share drafts, and then Matt also showed how you can embed records directly in your website. And you can use that same option in the clearinghouse. So if we go to search and you want to share a specific search or record, so let's say I want to look at competent national authorities. Note, of course, that I'm right now on the training site, so these are only going to be records that have been published in the training site. When I go to share, here's the embed option Matt showed, but you can also share by link or by email here as well. So these are things that our colleague Blaise Fonseca went through in detail at the last webinar. So I'll highlight again what Matt said and what Kareem said earlier. There's a lot of content to provide some support while you're navigating through the contextual help, through the knowledge base. But please feel free to contact us directly. You can do so by that chat icon that Karine highlighted at the bottom right here, where you can message us via Slack, and we try and get back to those messages as soon as possible. But you can also email us directly. So the email for the BCH is bch@cbd.int, and for ABS, it's absch.cbd.int. And then there's also our personal emails that I'm happy to receive questions and comments from. So with that, I'll pass the floor back to Matt. I know we're a little bit over the hour.
Yeah, thanks, Zachar. So I just wanted to address a couple questions that came up in the chat really quickly. So one is about the e-learning site. So the CBD has an e-learning site currently. There's some issues about how this is hosted, and we're looking for an alternative to provide that information on another site. So right now it might not be working perfectly, but I think we'll try to make that information and everyone aware when it is back working, because we do have 3 very useful e-learning courses there. One about an introduction to ABS and the protocol, one specifically on the clearinghouse that goes through in very detail everything that you need to know, and one about establishing a legal framework, which is also very useful for people trying to implement the protocol in their country. So I'll let you know when that is available or if there's a problem. You can also, yeah. The other thing is we did record this webinar. We're trying to record all our webinars, and we will make those available again on the clearinghouse and let everybody know when that happens. So I think with that, I hope this has been helpful to you. Please, again, feel free to reach out to us. And that's it. So have a nice rest of your days. And then look for the next topic, which we'll be discussing and posting up on the clearinghouse as an announcement and send you by email very soon. So thanks a lot. Thanks, Anastasia, Zachar, Kareem, Blaze, everyone.
Thanks for joining, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'm trying to figure out if we can end the recording from here. Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that I'm trying to.
Maybe it's from Blaze's end because it says Blaze started recording.
No, but Matt was a core administrator, so maybe he needs to. Let's see. And I think Blaze can stop the recording. Let me. Oh, I can stop it too.